Hi everyone. This is Mandion Astral Oracles coming to you to talk about first contact, and it came up recently in a comment by Paul Fastar, but it's also, of course, a question that I know a lot of you are very interested in, and has also come up in some live channelings, and also is a recurring topic in private sessions. So it's really something that I know a lot of people who are into alien channeling in particular are excited about, and woohoo for that, because it's a very exciting prospect. And at the same time, I personally feel um, like very much engaged in communicating with these entities through these channels that are available to me. So I don't feel like a great sense of expectation, and I just feel like it will happen when it will happen. If it happens, it's one of those things where yes, when I'll see it when I believe it, when the skies crack open and the chariot descends, then of course I'll believe the Messiah is returning. But until that, let's wait and see. Because it's very fascinating what it actually is, first contact, what it's saying about the progress of humanity, and where we are as a species, and where we envision ourselves going. And also it's of course very fascinating that this has been something that seems to have been manifesting itself into the collective consciousness in well, partially a lot through popular fiction, right, since the end of the Second World War. And I think, of course, it's worth noting that well, the Arcturians talk about this, that a way that they have been interacting with humankind in this period since the Second World War is that they have well, been shaping our ideas and images of ourselves. And so notice that the Vulcan salute is the Arcturian salute. So that's one of theirs, but it's also this configuration of humankind to see how we may begin to access the frequencies that are necessary for us to establish meaningful communication with them. Um, because like I remember seeing Independence Day in at the movies when I was 10, I believe it. Yeah. And of course, it's I'm not ragging on the Fresh Prince of Bel Air blowing up aliens. It's all good fun, right? But of course it speaks to the vision humanity has of aliens as something alien, as also something foreign to be feared, and something that we need to act well, aggressively towards, and to ward off, to protect humanity. And of course, that was only 25 years ago, and that speaks also to the degree that the human collective consciousness is ready for these encounters. And perhaps we aren't as ready as we think, because if you imagine, well, there are certain different perspectives in this, but there's a lot of difficulties connected, of course, to the idea of contact. If in the horizontal level, well, we know, of course, from our own planet that we're only able to exist in well, quite specific climatic conditions. And even humanity, who has been so good at adapting, there are several areas taking up a great deal of land on the surface area of the planet, which are simply uninhabitable, like the Sahara or the Antarctic, or places like that. And a lot of them are also just hostile, like Siberia, or Greenland, or northern Canada, or whatever, like places where humans can exist, but only on a almost subsistence level. And if we extrapolate that to um, relating it to other dimensional creatures, or creatures from other planets who arose, even though they have the same, let us say, physical base elements and components of us, that is, that they're playing at approximately the same frequency. So let us just imagine Mars was habitable, and aliens were living up there. They would still have arisen under different atmospheric conditions, different gravitational conditions, and their senses would probably also have developed in very different ways. You could, for instance, imagine instead of having eyes that are light sensitive, you have organs that are sensitive to atmospheric pressure and sense concentrations of different things and make out night and day by those mechanisms. So you can subdivide existence into infinite categories of perceiving them through different sense organs that arise in different species on different planets in different solar systems in different galaxies. So like the universe is that immense, and of course that also means that some creatures likely do exist on our frequency band, but the idea that they, just the difficulty we have had with going to our nearest satellite, the moon, the idea that they would be able to recreate conditions from their planet while transporting themselves physically through space and then arriving at this planet, which was also perfect for their conditions. Well, it's a very, very difficult project, and we're fantasizing about it now and moving into it in early steps. But of course, it's like a project for the millennia, right? It's much easier for us to create life forms or technological extensions such as drones and send them out there because they aren't destroyed by the hostile environmental conditions of foreign environments. So that's just to say that, well, we would have to at least rely on these creatures being able to adjust themselves to the physical conditions of Earth, which probably requires quite a high degree of technological capabilities. And so you could imagine that, well, what they would be able to do was essentially to reshape the molecular components of the time space around them to make a sort of suitable environment. And that's indeed what these higher intelligences or ascended species they do. That is the way they interact with physical space. Um, and if you imagine then that we move up the horizontal ladder, because that's of course the other dimension is the higher dimensions of this, and the higher dimensions of this are the idea that well, when you move into more subtle layers of reality, you access different components, higher understandings of reality that are layered within it, but that are inaccessible to creatures who exist in a lower density or and a lower dimensional fixation in their consciousness, such as us. And that means, for instance, for four-dimensional consciousness moving into the 5D, such as human consciousness, that we still perceive the physical world to be somewhat solid, to be a material place that has certain properties in the outside world, and that all changes as you move up into the dimensional ladder. And once you get to the sixth dimension, where we encounter such bodies as my Lyran guide Ismon, they're able to manifest realities around them by controlling consciousness. And so the way to think about UFOs or spaceships is also that it's a type of mental object that they create, and that they're able to move at will around in the physical time space to be perceived in other sectors, and there to create this isolated environment. Well, it's a quite clever idea. It's the idea snails have, and that we wish we could do that. It's the vision of the RV, right? You can take you can take your home on your back, and then you can set it up anywhere in the universe. It's very clever, and that's also why a lot of these UFO sightings. Notice that people often feel certain premonitions and special feelings, and like it is something that's interacting with their consciousness, because it's essentially in the realms of higher dimensional consciousness where we have and meet these other races, these higher dimensional creatures, and that's also why a lot of it takes place in dreams. Carlo of the Esisani, he had this beautiful phrase in a session the other day where I believe he said that in the waking state, um, the higher self plays with the physical, and in the dreaming state, the physical plays with the higher self. So you could, those are both aspects of reality, but it's in idea how the goggles are, which way the binoculars is turning. That might be plural. The binoculars are turning, and so the question is, of course, are you perceiving in the waking state, well, the infinitude of the universe around you, centered in this? Or are you in the dreaming state, well, being the infinitude of the universe in rapid creative instant creation that's trying to fold itself into the physical self, what is taking place in the dream state? And so notice what happens as we move up into the dimensional ladder, and that these entities and and the communion with their energies becomes much easier for us. It's also that our lives seem to become more dreamlike in themselves. So something as synchronicity occurs, and I said that at 11:11, I noticed, but occurs exactly because the idea of well, of your reality not actually being a physical objective space, but being something that's orchestrated by your higher intentions, begins to permeate more and more into your existence, until you arrive at the point that like you are creating this entire space around you, and you are the one divine that's sort of separating itself into to this experience, to see itself in this mortal coil, so to speak. And all these ascended races, they have those realizations. So so they are, in that sense, enlightened ones, or Christ-like, or the anointed ones, or yes, bodhisattvas, whatever you want to call it, but they exist in this state. And that means that they are somehow, well, also able to mentally project themselves everywhere. So what we perceive as physical reality, it's something more like a play of shapes, where the dream is waking up to itself and becoming more and more awake. And that's why we call it awakening, right? That's the metaphor we use for it. It's waking up and then being in the dream while still knowing you're in the dream. And that makes the dream a lot more fun. Like, that's for people who play with lucid dreaming. That's I understand that they have a lot of fun with it, because it's once you know that you're the one interacting with it and creating it, it ceases to be able to affect you randomly. And it begins to become a great co-creation between the different separate parts of yourself. And some of those parts of yourself are, in a sense, different separate entities that exist in, well, either different physical spaces from this one, or different time frames from this one, or different dimensions from this one, or different timelines from this one, or different accelerations or vibrational layers from this one. And it's all one, but it's one huge frequency band where you occupy this little place. And so that's the interesting thing I want to get to. Well, notice that we also become far more pacifistic in our approach to life in general. Like, I've noticed, the more I come into contact with these things, the less I feel like harming insects. For instance, I don't care for spiders, but I've just will notice that I've begun to go out of my way to try to not kill the spider. And that's the thing that naturally seems to be growing when you ascend the dimensional ladder. So they are usually peace-loving species. So that inclination towards destructiveness seems to be something that dissipates as you move up consciousness. And there is some correlation we haven't understood about the physical laws of the universe, where, well, creatures that are, let us say, as um, wantonly destructive as human beings have been known to be in throughout history, and still they don't get to operate these massive technologies of pure potency or be able to exit the solar system, because it's simply too dangerous. And I think that there's some interesting law built in it, because the idea that, well, so much creation, so much evolution, so much bringing together of higher order manifests in some creature that's just blindly trying to blow everything up. That seems to be like a way that would be not very logical or efficient in the way that you would construct a universe, given that if you were a divine intelligence that knew everything. And so those are some of the perspectives. And so these benevolent races, what they're probably interested in is seeing our development. Like, they're very interested in the experiment of humankind. And you can think of the idea of looking at an anthill. If you've ever enjoyed just watching the ants go about, what's going on is very, very fascinating. And then, you might give them some fruit that they can begin to take apart, and then you can watch that process. But you'd rather do that than disrupt the whole end process and then make them dependent on you, and open up the colony. And so also, the ants are unable to actually perceive you as anything, as a threat, because you're such a different creature from them in vibration. You are up one step in the dimensional ladder. And 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 therefore, of course, if they sense that it's not helpful, for us, for them to try to establish these contacts, it's not something that will bring the human experiment forward or further, and bring us into contact with ourselves. Well, they'd probably much rather stay on the sidelines and just give us these nuggets of food or information, or um, pieces of entertainment, or feeds into the mass collective consciousness, and then see how we work with them, and operate with them. And so the further we do that, the further we move up into that dimensional ladder, like do the personal work, the easier it will also be to come into to first contact. And of course, you can begin first contact right now by trying to establish contact to some of your galactic family, because they are out there talking to us, and we all have different ways in which we reach these messages easiest. But if you're already here listening to this weird stuff about aliens, it's definitely because it's something that resonates with you, and is close to you in vibration. Um, so that's of course good news, but the perspective from the aliens is also that if they're to gain something from it, well, then imagine that they have to match our vibration for there to be an informational exchange. And the idea of informational exchange is, of course, some sort of a mutual learning, or um, reward. And so if you would shrink yourself down to ant level, like, at what point does your ability to communicate with the ants about anything else than ant stuff, which you might be kind of indifferent about, because unless you're bringing it forward to try to communicate human information into that framework, well, what's the point? You can just learn from the ants by observing them from the outside. So I think those are some of the perspectives which I've just been juggling with around, like, what is this first contact? Because I definitely, of course, I do this I do this channeling work. So like, I go a lot beyond the veil, and sense these intelligences, and sense them reaching out, and connecting to us. But I also feel it very much like a something like a reality ladder, something like reality is changing around me. It's the framework, and the density, the texture of the time space layer itself that's changing to be able to make this contact. And so, for the point, like, and I also realized that I will have to do like a lot of personal work, and come to a new level of quietude within myself to arrive at a point where I would be cool with, my Syrian guide, who looks kind of freaky from what the images he's transmitting. Would just be sitting over in the rocking chair over there, going, okay, so what's for dinner? And because that's freaky, right? Like, it's very, very freaky to imagine like a huge sentient creature who has the power to create items with their mind, um, somehow just turned up in your experience because he decided to land on your front lawn someday, and now everything is different. Like I think they've begun to realize how dramatic it is for human beings and the framework of the human mind to actually accept these things. And that's why, well, it's actually, if you think about it, it's in a sense, it makes a lot of sense that the way they would transmit and begin to establish contact is through that subtlest of human senses, the mind. And so because that vibrates um, at a, let's say, much finer density than some of the other base configurations, it's the place where they can meet us. And so channeling, right, because it's a transmission of energy and then transmitted into and translated into human code, which I think was perhaps, the most fail-safe way, even though that's not getting all the information. It is in a sense um, assuring that the human mind can cope with what's being transmitted, because it can only translate what a human mind is able to fold into language. Um, and so like they're laying the groundwork here for a lot of other complex transmissions. And I believe like digitally we will begin to see things acting out on that layer 2 phenomenon we can't understand, where they're toying with our electric codes. But that's yet to come, and let's see what the Greys have to say about it. Yes, 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 yes. Hello, sweet human beings. We have interacted with you a great deal before this present point in your history. We have tried to come through in many different manifestations. We tried to come here through spaceships. We tried to come here through telepathic communication. We tried to come here by electrical stimulation. We tried to come here by interacting your dreams, and yet we have come here most clearly in the realm of ideas. So we are quite near to you in vibration. You feel us as something that's human-like, and yet there's something very strange about your vibration, because we have also been trying to tap into your history, having some of these experiments going backward, adjusting some of these timelines seem, to make them seem assured, and to make them configure into a, let us say, more strange or alien vibration. So you are discovering things in your past, especially around the Andean region, which may bring you forward and be able to better comprehend the vibration that we've been wanting to share with you. And so we also went to great lengths by creating the hybrid program. And when the hybrid program became possible, those energies, they began as soon as they were ready to, and had grown their own timelines and experiences, they began establishing communication back to you, because the whole thing is that we would like to see a unification of human timelines. We would like to see our energy work into this present timeline. And the way we would like to see our energy work into this present timeline is we are building a type of multidimensional object using, well, partially the knowledge collected by the hybrid races and by other people who participate in this, but also partially information created from other timeline experiences that have been very possible with humankind. It resembles much, the Lemurian object of the pyramid resting in upon itself, the diametrically opposed pyramids balanced on each other on that one point of concentration that they both hold. And so this is something that we have been exploring, and so you will sense that from this thing there are timelines merging into yourself. So when you are becoming multidimensional, this also means that some of you are experiencing well, experiences and recognitions that you have had in parallel lives, and we mean the quite physical you that are seen there. You have had parallel lives with slightly other experiences, and so this also plays out in your relationship to your loved ones, for instance, that you're able to see them from a different perspective because you have had intuitively, energetically other experiences with them. And so you see them as more whole, more holistic creatures, and you begin to also see them as traveling spirits. And these are things that we have learned from coming to these places. So you began a process of great spiritual discovery for us, and we're very, very grateful for that. And that's also why we're trying to pay it back by trying to merge these timelines. And so our energy is, in essence, merging into yours, and it's merging into yours by feeding into the hybrid program. And the hybrid program is feeding back into humanity, and humanity is becoming much more hybridized, so to speak. So a lot of alien DNA has been activated within you. And these are the beginning seeds of first contact, because as soon as you establish these frequencies and energies, and as soon as you know to access this weird space of quite instantaneous manifestation, the place where things go missing when they are acting in accordance with your higher will, and then when they turn up at exactly the right divine timing, you know you are in that place. That is a place you can go, and you can also go there to contact us by different means. If you really want to see the spaceships, if you really want to see the spaceships, you should begin a type of beaming signal yourself. You can begin to play around with Morse code, different refinements of this, different frequencies of light, assigning different signals, or for instance different lengths of time to stroboscopic programs to code different messages that you would like to code into these stroboscopic programs, and then beaming them at the sky. And lo and behold, as you begin to affect reality with your intention, maybe the sky will beam back at you. Just maybe the sky will beam back at you, dear friends. And that's all we will say. That is that great things are indeed coming, and we are looking forward to the first contact. But know also from these accelerated timelines, it's not very difficult to jump into the first time for right contact, or for first contact, now that we have learned it, and we are in a sense already in contact here. So these are some of the joyful preliminary stages that we are also playing through, and that you can enjoy as you also make way and pave way for the UFOs to land in your lifetime, so to speak. There are things that you could open up to, there are experiments you could have, there are vibrations not yet reached by your physical being that you could go exploring into. There is maybe also just a little dish you would like to cook in your dish before the aliens land. Maybe there are marshmallows you would like to turn into a type of cake, or if there is a strawberry that you would like to eat with some cream or something. Maybe there are some of these things that you could also keep yourself occupied, because we are already with you in these higher dimensions, and we are already extending signals to you. And as soon as you begin to be ready and you begin to do the work, we will be very happy to do these first contact things. But notice that the thing is already happening. You are already aware that the unidentified flying object is a phenomenological reality. It is something that's recorded, that's being seen, that's being testified. You do not understand it, and there's not no reason to understand it fully, because the joy is in exploring, and you will be exploring much more of it. But do know that these things are on their way. And so as it becomes a tested reality, it will become more and more accepted. And for those of you who are aligned with it, you will then begin to open the physical space that will be able for you to manifest in this experience that you seek of first contact. And there you can meet all your alien friends. But know that before that, there is a lot more fun to be had also where you are at, and that where you are at is identical with the place that you will be, and that place that you will be is identical with the place that has been before this moment where you are at right now. And so there is an identity stretching across the time space, which when you begin to access it, begins to dissolve these dimensions and open up for the magic, the wonder, the dream, like that this little dear human one from this timeline, he's explaining, and he has been explaining to you that this was something that you could go exploring into, the dream-like states, the realization that your reality is a type of dream-like state. It is a manifestation of high vibrational energies into a lower vibrational framework. that makes it play out in a tempo and a preference that is much more to the suitable liking of the higher realms and much to the frustration of the miniatures down here that is you that is playing it out, that is also us in a sense. And so we are in this together, and we do look forward to expanding the dream together, connecting these timelines through these transdimensional objects. You can begin to build them in the mind, and they will work and function, and then they will become reality. Therefore, it has been a joy talking with you, sweet dear human beings. What a pleasure and a joy it was for you and for us both to be able to have this co-creation in the hyperspace. And now this hyperspace reality, it's feeding and beaming its joy back to you. And please do take care that you do receive this joy, because it is a frequency that you hold, that you have created with us. And so we do offer this in loving understanding. We do offer this in a great embrace of the all now that we all reside in. And so, in the all now, let us all hold hands and feel much beloved and blessed in this moment. So, this has been the great Seti Relate Uchekala, the grey aliens, the little grey men, or grey men actually, well, that you know of from different sources. And we have enjoyed communicating with you. You can contact us, as you know, and we are contacting you, as you know. Wink, wink. Hey, 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 hey. Much love to you, human beings. A very playful vibration from those guys.